This is the second lecture from Terry Christian, and this week Terry talks about Manchester music. This is part 2 of a 2-part lecture series. Terry talks about Manchester music from 1979 onwards, so there's a little recap in terms of Manchester music previously, but also we really start at the end of the punk scene and Factory Records. So we talk about bands such as New Order and Joy Division, who really came out of that punk scene and that new wave scene. Further on, we chart Manchester music history through the 1980s, and we look at a number of different elements of Manchester music, from indie music, dance music and soul music. And then we work our way through to 1988, where we'll start to look at the dance music scene and dance culture in Manchester, with an alternative look at the pop music scene in Manchester and some unlikely bands that we'd expect to appear on the British TV show Top of the Pops. Okay, so following on from this is a clip of Terry, who gives a short overview of the lecture. Additionally, on SoundCloud and a number of other links, there is an audio recording of Terry's lecture available.
Well, today's lecture I tried to do 1979 to the present day in an hour, interrupted as well by a fire alarm, and I think I ended up doing about an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half altogether. But I just wanted to introduce the students to the variety, in case any of them had come in with preconceptions about what the Manchester music scene is. How many big hits, how pop it was, you know, the Bee Gees, Take That, all the dance stuff, Urban Cookie Collective, LMC, N-Trance, Set You Free, the black music influences, 52nd Street, signed to Factory Records, had a top 20 hit in the US Billboard charts, before New Order or anybody like that or anybody else from Manchester did throughout the 80s, except for maybe Simply Red, who got to #1 with Holding Back the Years. And it was to kind of show that, because there's been a lot of myths about Manchester, certainly when it comes to the Manchester scene. And what happened with the Manchester scene, in reality, with the Stone Roses broke through, and then in order to get Factory Records with the Happy Mondays and the Hacienda onto the coattails of the Stone Roses, Tony Wilson, he was a mate of mine, you know, he was a colleague and all the rest of it. I worked with him and knew him for like over 30 years. But Tony was wrong what he did. And what he did was he was so desperate to get his own stuff across that he kind of tried to make the Hacienda and the Happy Mondays and all this nonsense about indie dance crossover, as if people who liked the Buzzcocks back in the 70s also didn't like Earth, Wind and Fire, also didn't like the big disco funk bands like Chic or Funkadelic or Parliament at the time. You know, there's always been a crossover for people who like music. And but he tried to make a thing of it. And it was like, it just squeezed out all the black music, anything that didn't fit in with that kind of Hacienda Factory agenda. And the only people who keep reinforcing this myth are the people who benefit from it themselves. It's a lie, it's a myth. And I just thought, get that across to media students, because, you know, to be any good in the media, really, you've got to be a truth seeker. So I just wanted them to feel that and sense what was different about Manchester. Also, you know, the radical element within the music, but also how that radicalism in art, music or anything else, the thing that seems that it's kicking against the system, then gets sequestered by the system. You know, capitalism is avaricious. It wants new things. It wants new things to sell. So it will sell rebellion. It will sell, you know, dodgy alternative lifestyles, whether it's the Happy Mondays or anything else, whether it's grime, whether it's people shooting at each other in hip-hop videos. They will sell that as well. They want anything. Anything that's new means they've got more new things to sell. But that's why Manchester, for all its kind of left fieldness, has kind of fed the capitalist monster. You know, if you think that a band like The Fall, who are about as anti-establishment and anti-authoritarian and rule-breaking as any band that has ever existed in music anywhere in the world, and they've been going since 1977, and they've been on Top of the Pops 3 times, and they're still played, and, you know, they've been in major, you know, their songs have been used in major movies like Silence of the Lambs and other things. You know, a left field poet like John Cooper Clarke, who's getting from Salford, who's getting recognition now. The guy's, you know, the guy was a heroin addict for like 30 odd years, you know, and still a recovering heroin addict. But there he is, you know, doing evidently Chicken Town, a song which was a track or a poem which has been banned everywhere because every second word is a swear word, that's on the end of The Sopranos. So it's how good things last, you know, and how to do something different to go against what you see as a mainstream isn't that stupid, really. It's quite clever. If you want to be around for maybe 20 years instead of just for 4.